Hi everyone! Welcome to Therapy Talk, where we talk about all things mental health. First of all, if you are new to my channel, please make sure to subscribe first. The button is, I think, down here. It says subscribe, I think it says. It's here. Anyway, I hope you hit that button and subscribe to my channel. Also, please make sure to give this video a like, alright? If you've been on my channel before and you have seen my videos and you haven't subscribed, what are you waiting for? Alright, please make sure you subscribe. Thank you. Alright, anyway. If you've noticed, today I am indoors. If you've seen my two past videos, I was actually outdoors. I traveled to two different places to interview two wonderful individuals who were kind enough to share to us their mental health journey. But today I chose to be indoors. One reason is because, as you all know, probably already know, there is a pandemic going on in our world caused by the COVID19 Coronavirus. So I'm indoors to make sure I reduce the risk of being exposed to the virus. I hope you're doing the same thing and you're following all the guidelines by the CDC, your public health officials in wherever you may be. Make sure that you're safe, all right? So which brings me to the topic of today's video, which is how this pandemic is affecting our mental health, specifically when it comes to anxiety and stress. So in this video, I want to talk to all of you and share with you information on, why we feel anxious and stressed out during these times, and also tips on how to decrease and better manage your anxiety and stress. Okay? So let me start by talking about anxiety. In my practice, I talk to a lot of my clients who are struggling with anxiety. And by the way, as a side note, for the last week and a half, I've, talked to my clients about, what's happening around COVID-19. And interesting enough, a lot of my clients, they're not really panicking. They're not feeling very, very anxious about it, which is good. Because, when we feel very anxious or very stressed out, we can, resort to unhealthy or unhelpful behaviors. But again, it's normal to feel anxious during these times. It's very understandable to feel anxious because, there's a lot of uncertainties that are happening in our world today. It's the thing about COVID-19 is that it's new. Right? We still don't know a lot about it. There's a lot of uncertainty. We don't know how to prevent it. We don't know how to treat it. We don't even know how many people are affected by it. There's still a lot of things that we need to know about this virus. So a lot of these uncertainties, it's feeding into our anxiety. And anxiety is the intolerance of uncertainties. So people who are unable to deal with uncertainties, they have a hard time adapting to uncertainties, they feel anxious. And also this, when people are anxious, including myself, sometimes, we feel this lack of self-control, and that contributes to anxiety. Some people have asked about, comparing this to the flu. So why aren't we very concerned or worried about the flu? Well, the difference is, the flu has been around for so long, so we know a lot about it. We know how to prevent it because we have a vaccine. We know how to treat it. There's Tamiflu. And we just know a lot about it. So it's not as anxiety provoking as it is. Obviously, it's still a concern. The flu affects so many people around the world. It causes a lot of deaths, which is very unfortunate. So obviously, it's still normal to feel anxious when we get the flu. Hopefully, when we get the flu, that we're able to manage it well and we recover from it. So yeah, that's just the difference with how we feel anxious with coronavirus, COVID-19, and the flu. Now, one thing to remember is, when we think of anxiety, we always think that, oh, it's bad, it's negative. Actually, there is some benefit to it. I was watching a webinar earlier, and one of the presenters said, actually, anxiety can be good because it pushes us to take action. All right. When we're anxious, the brain triggers the response system. I'm sure you've heard of it, the fight, flight, or freeze. So it pushes us to do something about the threat or the trigger or whatever it may be. So it's the question of, what do we do as a reaction? What do we do in response? Obviously we want to make sure that we're responding in a way that's healthy and beneficial. So anxiety on that regard can be helpful, but too much anxiety is very problematic. Okay? Anxiety, when it comes to anxiety, the mind has a lot to do with it. When we're anxious, we have a lot of worry thoughts, a lot of negative thoughts. I'm sure you've all had what I call the what if thoughts. So in this case, in the coronavirus pandemic, what if I get it, or what if I die from it, or what if I'm self-quarantined for so long, what if I lose my job, things like that. So that creates a lot of worry and a lot of anxiety for a lot of people. One of the presenters at the webinar I was watching earlier said that worry is like a garden. So the more we tend the garden, the more we take care of it, we water it every day, the plants will grow. So the plants are the worry thoughts. But if we just, throw the seeds in the ground and just forget it, tendencies that the plants won't grow. All right. So that's the kind of comparison he made when it comes to anxiety. And I think it makes a lot of sense. One of the presenters also said that, when it comes to anxiety, we have a negativity bias, which means, when we receive information, like in our brains, we automatically go to how bad it can be or how negative it can be. And there's a lot of truth to that. I think, when it comes to, everyday living, we tend to, it's easy for us to focus on the negative. All right. And I'm sure you all can relate to that. I'm sure, it happens to me as well. I experience this as well, and it's not very healthy to think about it that way. When we think about we focus too much on the negativity, but it's so easy to do that. And that's what they meant by the negativity bias. And the more we focus on the negatives, the more anxious we get. We also get depressed and experience stress and, other kinds of mental health issues. Okay. So, and the thing about worries, so when we talk about intrusive, negative, or worry thoughts, we really cannot control when they come in. We can only control what we do with these thoughts when they come up. All right. So we cannot suppress, we cannot get rid of negative worry thoughts. All right. So it's how we manage them. So think about it this way. Think of worry or negative thoughts as a beach ball. So when you try to submerge the beach ball underwater, what happens? It'll come back up. So that's how thoughts work. They're automatic. Whatever you do with them, it'll just keep coming up to the surface. All right. So the point is, what will be helpful is to focus on what we can do with those negative thoughts when they show up. All right. Now let me talk about stress. So when we're constantly worried, we're bombarded with so much information, like what's happening now, information about coronavirus. It's all over the internet. It's all over social media. It's all over the news. So when we are in that situation where we're getting so much information, we feel stressed out, especially because a lot of the information they're scary, they're worrisome, they're negative. They're negative. So we feel a lot of stress. So what happens to us when we're stressed out or when we're feeling a lot of stress? So the thing with stress is it increases the production of a stress hormone called cortisol. Okay, in short spurts, cortisol is actually helpful because it helps limit inflammation. But if it's too much in our bloodstream, it actually opens the door to more inflammation. And so that's not helpful. So when that happens, it decreases the white blood cells called lymphocytes. And these white blood cells are the ones that help us fight off infection. So what happens is we become more susceptible to becoming sick. We become more susceptible and we are more at risk to being sick because of the viruses like the common cold, the flu, and now we have COVID-19. And we really need a very strong immune system because that's really one of the ways that we can fight this virus. Because right now we don't have a vaccine. We don't have a treatment for it. All right. So it's very important to maintain a strong immune system. All right. So let me share with you some tips that I have to manage and decrease your anxiety and stress when it comes to this pandemic. So the first one, and the thing is also very important, is make sure you know the facts, okay? Make sure you get your information from reputable sources. You know, misinformation is so much out there, and it's really, really not helpful. So please be careful on where you get your information, and also be careful on how you spread, you know, information. You want to make sure you don't spread misinformation, okay? And it's important to make decisions on how you're going to manage your anxiety and stress based on facts, not emotions. So that's very important to know. The second one is, so once you gather all this reputable information or facts, you can start to create a plan or rules for yourself. For example, a plan on how you're going to manage, you know, and deal with this pandemic. So it's helpful. What's helpful about that is that when you have a plan or rules, it creates a sense of structure. And structure is very helpful when it comes to managing anxiety, because there is sort of like a certainty there. There's you know, there's a structure. It helps. You know, it's real. It's a lot of it is based on facts. So that's very helpful when it comes to dealing with anxiety. All right. Next one is, when it comes to getting your information, make sure you limit your time, okay, in reading and listening, for example, to the news, because like I said earlier, information is everywhere. We're going to be bombarded everywhere you turn. It's all about this pandemic. So it's important to know the facts, but it's counterproductive if we are too much exposed and it's constant. So it's gonna be stressful. All right, so make sure you limit your time when it comes to, you know, reading the news, listening, going through social media, things like that. Next one is, and this is important, make sure you take care of your body. All right, so like I said earlier, it's important to have a strong immune system as a way to defend ourselves from this virus. So how do you take care of your body? Well, make sure you get enough sleep, you're eating a well-balanced diet, you're drinking your vitamins, you're drinking water, make sure you're hydrated, make sure you're getting enough rest. All right, those things are very important to make sure that we maintain a very strong immune system. All right. Next one is, you know, make sure that you feel connected and that you are connected, you know, to, you know, and specifically connected to other people. You know, right now, I'm sure you've heard a lot about people self-quarantining, self-isolating, because they don't want to, you know, they want to make sure they don't spread the virus, and as they, you know, get better. And I know here in New York City, and actually all around the world, they're talking about this social distancing. All right, so when we, you know, when we self-quarantine, or we're practicing social distancing, it doesn't mean that you have to be isolated, because that's also not helpful. So we're social beings, so it's important for us to feel connected to people. So what do? Well, you know, you can call your friends and family, you know, over the phone. You can do FaceTime. You know, I did that a few days ago with a friend of mine who is dealing with coronavirus. So yeah, so there are ways to stay connected to people even though you have to be home because you're under self-quarantine or isolation. Okay, so that's important to note as well. The next one is, make sure that you're still engaged in, you know, pleasurable activities, things that you enjoy. You know, that's very important, not only, you know, to keep us entertained during these times of, you know, of this pandemic, but it's also very helpful when it comes to, you know, our mental health. And even our physical health and emotional and even our spiritual health at the same time. So that means, you know, you do things that interest you, your hobbies, your interests. You know, maybe you can read a lot of books, listen to music. Let's see, or just do a hobby. I know some people like, you know, maybe crocheting or arts and crafts. You know, things like that. That's very important to be able to still do. Also, it's important to be present, to stay present, stay in the moment. So what happens is, when we are very anxious, our minds go everywhere. We think, you know, all negative stuff. So that becomes detrimental And also we have a tendency to go to, as one of the presenters at the webinar said earlier, to an imagined future. Okay, we're imagining, what life will be, the what if thoughts, as I was talking to you about earlier. So it's important to stay away from that and do things that will help us be present. So you can do mindfulness exercises, you can do meditation, you can do yoga. In my practice, I talk to clients a lot about mindfulness activities. I have one activity where clients sit, quiet area, they take, they do proper breathing, and then they look around the room, they pick an object, they look at it, they observe, and then they start to describe maybe its shape, its color, the position in the room, things like that. So that's one way of, being present. So that's very important when it comes to managing a lot of these negative thoughts that make us anxious. Okay. Let's see. And then when it comes to managing excessive worrying thoughts, it's important to, again, remember that we cannot get rid of these thoughts. We can only do things to manage them. So I always talk to clients about being able to externalize these thoughts as a way of managing these negative thoughts. So the more you talk about it, maybe talk to your friends, maybe talk to your therapist if you have a therapist. Some people like to journal, so they write down their negative thoughts. And sometimes when they do that, then I encourage them to okay, so why don't you challenge those thoughts? So what evidence do you have that thought is right? Or what evidence do you have that does not support the thought? So by doing that kind of mental exercise, it can be very helpful in managing these negative thoughts, these worrying thoughts. All right. Again, the idea, and then also I read a book that suggested that sometimes you can maybe record yourself. So you record yourself maybe on your phone, and then you listen over and over again. Some people write down the thoughts in several many times. So the idea is that the more we confront the thoughts over and over again, the emotional impact it will have on us will be less and less. All right. So these are just some of the tips I have for all of you when it comes to managing and decreasing your anxiety and stress during this unfortunate time of this pandemic. All right. So I hope that these were all helpful information for all of you. If you have any questions or any comments, please make sure to comment down below. I'll be very happy to answer any of the questions you may have. You can also reach out to me through my website, lloydfider.com. And then you can also send me an email. That's lloyd@lloydfider.com. All right, again, please make sure to subscribe to my channel. Please give this video a like, and also please make sure to share this video to your friends and your families. I'm sure the information I presented to you, and I hope that the information I presented and shared with all of you will be very helpful for everyone. All right, well, that's about it. That's it for today's video. And as I say to everyone at the end of my videos, I wish that all of you have a happy mental health day. Take care, and I will see you next time. Bye.